can start now.
Okay, so good afternoon, teachers. Today I'm going to present my research study that is about the meaning of using game-based activities as a vocabulary learning strategy for primary students in an EFL context in a subsidized school in Maipú. So first of all, I'm going to address some situated background for you to understand how the research problem was identified. So first of all, this study was based on my internship this term. So it was based on observations of a 5th grade in a subsidized school in Maipú during the English classes for 6 weeks. They had one class per week. So from those observations, I noticed that the English teacher was always trying to do some game-based activities in order to mainly practice some vocabulary for the next test or for a specific task. And I noticed from students' behavior and reactions that sometimes they wanted to participate even though being sure about the answers. They only wanted to participate. They were really excited because the teacher always applied games based on competitions. So she divided the class in 3 groups and so on. So they were really competitive during those activities. But then I realized that as they were not sure about their answers, my question was, what is the meaning for them of using this type of games, and if that meaning fits the purpose of the teacher of using these game-based activities as a vocabulary learning strategy. So, regarding literature and socio-political backgrounds, we have Minadu that suggests that Minadu suggests that teachers should be aware of the contents and the way in which students need to learn the content. So they need to be aware about their needs, maybe with a need analysis strategy or something, but they need to be aware of it so that they can apply the strategy that better fits their needs. And that is also related to our current situation in the education in Chile that is supported by Daimler, in which you can notice that most of the scholarships are for those students that have better grades in their scholarly period. So students are always very competitive trying to achieve those marks. Then about the empirical background, we have Maurao, 2014, and Camargo Uribe and Hederich Martinez, also 2014. They suggest that these strategies based on content should go beyond the content itself, so that students can have a meaningful learning for their lives. Also, it suggested by Brown and Yari, 2007, that those strategies should be applied in order to achieve a specific purpose for the teacher. In this case, there was vocabulary, and Yari suggests that game-based activities is one of the best ways to practice vocabulary. About the deficiencies in knowledge, I found that most of those authors only address the effectiveness of using game-based activities, but they don't integrate students' perceptions. They are only based on students' results. And Vivek also talks about some people consider game-based activities as an unserious practice, since he suggests that these people only think that it's a game. How are you going to learn by playing in class? So then the purpose of this study is, as I said before, trying to find this meaning, but from students' perspective, trying to integrate them on these results. Therefore, the research question is, what is the meaning of using game-based activities as a vocabulary learning strategy for 5th grade students in a subsidized school in Maipú in a TEFL context? Very similar to the title that I presented before. So the research objectives, the general objective is to understand this meaning, that is the meaning of using game-based activities as a learning strategy for the 5th grade students in a TEFL context in a subsidized school in Maipú. So basically I'm trying to understand this meaning. And to achieve this general objective, we have 3 specific objectives. First one, to identify different game-based activities applied in the classroom, to see the variety of these games and see if the purpose changes. Also, to describe students' perception on the application of game-based activities so that I can integrate them. And finally, to identify the purposes of using game-based activities from the teacher. And this is basically to support this perception, to see if they fit, because teachers should have a purpose for each activity or strategy. But the idea is to see if students can perceive this intention behind it. So the research assumptions are basically that students can notice this intention behind only if the purpose of the teacher is clearly specified and presented to students. And about that, Buckley, 2006, suggests that clear purposes that are stated makes easier a meaningful learning for students. So from the methodology, we have the paradigm, the approach, the procedure, and the operationalization. From the paradigm, I need to say that this is an interpretive study. So as Cohen, Mannion, and Morrison 2007 and Van 2015 suggest this paradigm is based on an individual, on their perceptions, in order to make a clear interpretation. So, as is based mainly on observations, this is a qualitative study that Hernandez and Bautista suggest that a qualitative study is based on the participants' reactions, attitudes, and opinions about the phenomenon. Therefore, the procedure of this study was first doing the observations of the course, then gather the information in field notes, the ones that came from observations, then doing an interview in order to gather students' perceptions about mainly about their experiences during their participation in those games activities, and also their perceptions about the reasons of why the teacher is applying these games. And then also the teacher was interviewed in order to support the initial intention of those activities. And then the idea is to triangulate all the information in order to gather a final interpretation and conclusions of the study. So the operationalization is based on the three key categories that are game-based activities, young learners, and vocabulary learning strategies. Okay, the scenarios is, as I mentioned before, a 5th grade of an English class, and some other characteristics of these students is that they are really exposed to English. They always try to participate, like for example, in activities like spelling bees and things like that. That was the extra information. And the data collection material, we have the field notes and open-ended interview. Field notes, Mackie and Cass suggest that field notes are the best technique to gather information from observations. And the open-ended interview, Al-Shenquidi, I think that is the pronunciation, Jill Stewart, Treasure, and Chadwick suggest that it's a great material to gather the direct perceptions of the participants. About the data analysis techniques, we have matrices and triangulations. The matrices were applied to the field notes and the open-ended interview. The field notes were categorized, and then I give the corresponding code. The same happened with the interview, in which I mixed both interviews, and then from the both matrices I triangulated the information in order to gather information about the meaning of those activities. The trustworthiness, given that this is an interpretive study, we have true value, consistency, neutrality, and applicability. True value is addressed as credibility, and Govard, Lincoln, and Mertens suggest that credibility is related to how valid is the study. About dependability, we have that Mackie and Gus explain that is how we show that the information is without bias. So then Google suggests an external auditor to analyze the information. And in this case, this external auditor was my internship partner, and he had no comments about the results. About the neutrality, that in this case is confirmability, it is related to the entire process available for others to see that everything in the procedure is transparent, that they can see, and that they can see all the information. And about applicability, that in this case is transferability, is related to how the results of the research study can transfer to another context, depending on the fittingness with another context, the level of fittingness. About the findings, I analyzed the data. The sample were, as I said before, the students and the teacher. Then all the information was gathered, as I said before, in field notes and interviews. Then, as I explained before, also the creation of matrices to organize all the information from those data collection materials, and then the triangulation to organize and have a final result in analysis. These are the interviews that are basically to gather information to find the meaning of the purpose of these activities. I only have to say here that the interview for students was in Spanish at first and then was translated. And then we have the first matrix from field notes. Those are the three categories that I could achieve. The first one was attitude towards game-based activities. That basically is related to the attitudes and reactions that the behavior that they have during the activities. Disruption towards learning, that is related to the elements that interrupt activities, and also observe content practice that is related to how the vocabulary learning strategy was achieved in an observable way. Also in the second matrix, we have the categories from the interview, experience from games, that is basically based on the level of difficulty and entertainment, participation, that is how they felt during those activities, purpose of game, that is related to the initial purpose of the teacher and the student's perception, and finally achievements from game-based activity, that is also related to how the strategy was effectively applied. The third matrix is from the triangulation, and I have the three main categories. The first one is meaning of experience of games as learning strategy. That, as I said before, is basically related to how they show and they said that they felt during the activities, how they perceived those activities. Also, meaning of the achievements of using game as learning strategy. That is also related to if they feel that it has an effective result and what was observable. And finally, the meaning of purpose of expectations of applying the perception of students with the initial purpose of the teacher.
Pamela, you need to stop. Too long.